Let us talk about the sheer, unadulterated panic radiating from the sterile halls of Garland Memorial Hospital right now. If you have been closely following the devastating aftermath of the Fairmont crest tornado, you already know that the physical destruction of the town completely pales in comparison to the emotional wreckage left in its wake. We are currently looking at a literal, terrifying, ticking clock. Eva Thomas is lying in a hospital bed, her life hanging by the absolute thinnest of threads. Her liver is rapidly failing. The internal bleeding from her horrific fall in that dark, debris-filled stairwell has done catastrophic damage to her internal organs. The medical team has made the grim reality crystal clear to the entire family. Without an immediate liver transplant from a viable living donor, Eva is going to die. There is absolutely no sugarcoating this medical crisis. The stakes have never been higher, the heart monitors are constantly beeping in the background, and the desperation in the air is practically palpable. Right in the middle of this life or death medical crisis, we have the ultimate explosive family standoff. Let us talk about Catherine Cat Richardson and her father, Ted. Ted, driven by sheer paternal panic and a desperate need to save one daughter without losing the other, tried to step up and be the grand mediator. But let us be brutally honest here, he failed spectacularly. Ted did not just fail to convince Kat to get tested, he actively alienated her and pushed her further away. He cornered her on the hospital stairs, calling her his soul and a living miracle, even reminiscing about how she used to play Monopoly as a child. It was a beautiful, nostalgic sentiment on the surface, but it was heavily laced with immense, suffocating guilt. He pushed her into a psychological corner where she felt completely unseen as an individual human being. Kat looked her father in the eye, tears streaming down her face, and essentially asked, "Am I just a spare part to you? And can we really blame her for feeling that way?" The emotional manipulation happening to this young woman is completely off the charts. Let us break down the actual logic of Kat's adamant refusal, because it is not just about being petty, despite what her frustrated family thinks. People are incredibly quick to label Kat as the selfish princess or Miss Righteous, especially Martin and Isaiah, who have been relentlessly pressuring her in the hallways. But let us rewind the tape and look at the cold, hard facts. Ava is not just a random innocent sister in need. She is the woman who maliciously slept with Kat's boyfriend. She is the woman who was directly involved in 2 separate murder attempts. Kat has been traumatized, betrayed, and pushed to the absolute psychological brink by Eva's past actions. To suddenly demand that Kat literally carve out a piece of her own vital organ to save the very person who made her life a living hell, that is a colossal, almost unforgivable ask. Ted's failure was not just in his pleading delivery, it was in his complete inability to validate Kat's very real, very justified trauma. He made her feel like her feelings were completely irrelevant, secondary to Eva's survival. And that is exactly why she bolted. Meanwhile, the tragedy unfolding inside Eva's hospital room is enough to break even the hardest, most cynical of hearts. Leslie Thomas is a character we often love to hate. She is ruthless, calculating, fiercely proud, and often incredibly cruel to those around her. But right now, stripped of her designer armor and her sharp tongue, she is just a terrified, broken mother watching her child slip away into the darkness. Leslie is sitting by that bedside, completely paralyzed by a despair so deep and suffocating that it radiates through the screen. The sheer agony of watching your child actively die, knowing you are biologically incompatible to save them, is a nightmare no parent should ever have to endure. Leslie offered her own liver in a heartbeat, practically begging the doctors to take it, but the universe cruelly said no. She is entirely powerless, and for a massive control freak like Leslie, powerlessness is a fate worse than death. Then came the fleeting, agonizing glimmer of hope that completely shattered the audience. Martin and Smitty. Let us take a moment to appreciate the sheer, unadulterated humanity of these 2 men. Despite all the bitter, bad blood, despite Leslie's horrific, manipulative behavior toward them in the past, Martin and Smitty stepped up to the plate. Martin, who literally just woke up with a concussion from the club collapse and was eager to get back to his primary election, immediately offered to go under the knife. For a brief, shining moment, Leslie actually breathed. She felt a surge of overwhelming, unfamiliar gratitude. But in true soap opera fashion, that hope was brutally, swiftly snatched away. The test results came back. Not a match. Neither of them. The emotional whiplash of that exact moment is staggering. You could practically hear Leslie's heart shatter into a million jagged pieces on the hospital floor. This brings us to a profound, potentially character-altering psychological turning point for Leslie Thomas. For her entire adult life, Leslie has been driven by one singular consuming obsession: wealth. Money, power, status, high society connections, these were her ultimate gods. She clawed her way to the top of Fairmont Crest, accumulating millions, building her empire, and treating people like disposable pawns on a grand chessboard. But as she sits in that sterile, unforgiving hospital room, staring at the monitors tracking Eva's fading heartbeat, the ultimate crushing irony hits her like a freight train. She has all the money in the world, and it is completely, utterly useless. It cannot buy the one thing she desperately needs: a biological match for her dying daughter. In what might be one of the most beautifully heartbreaking scenes of the entire season, we saw Leslie reminiscing about the days before the money corrupted her soul. The days of grinding poverty, when they had absolutely nothing but each other. Through her tears, she remembered dragging a young, opinionated Eva to secondhand thrift stores, watching her fiercely independent little girl try to perfectly color coordinate worn-out sweaters. Those specific memories, bathed in the bittersweet glow of nostalgia, highlight a devastating truth. Leslie was genuinely happier when she was poor but had her daughter's love than she is now, sitting on a mountain of cold cash while her daughter slowly dies. She tearfully apologized to the unconscious Eva for all the cruel things she has done, for letting her immense pride dictate her life choices, and for hiding the truth about Eva's father for so long. It was a moment of raw, unfiltered vulnerability that made us actually pity the town's biggest schemer. But here is where the twist comes into play, and where the analysis gets truly fascinating. You did not think Leslie Thomas was just going to sit there, cry into a tissue, and accept defeat, did you? Oh no. Grief does strange, unpredictable things to people, but for a woman like Leslie, grief weaponizes her ambition. If the legal, ethical, medical route has failed her, Leslie is more than ready to burn the entire rulebook to the ground. She looks at her massive bank account, wipes her tears, and has a terrifying, unhinged epiphany. If she cannot find a donor through the hospital's legitimate channels, she will simply buy one. Yes, you heard that right. Leslie Thomas is actively contemplating diving headfirst into the darkest corners of the black market. She wants to use her immense wealth to put out a silent, heavily funded bounty: name your absolute highest price and give my daughter your liver. It is an absolutely insane idea. It is highly illegal, it is incredibly dangerous, and it crosses every single moral and ethical boundary conceivable to modern medicine. It is literal organ trafficking, but from Leslie's twisted, desperate maternal perspective, it is the only logical move she has left on the board. If money is her only remaining weapon, she is going to fire it point blank. Let us analyze the sheer gravity of this impending decision. We are talking about the illegal purchasing of human organs. This is not just cutting a massive check to fund a new hospital wing to jump the transplant list. This is actively entering the dark web of human desperation. And who is standing right in the crosshairs of this impending moral explosion? Ted Richardson. Ted is a man of steadfast principle. He is a man who operates strictly within the bounds of morality, law, and ethical conduct. He is the voice of reason for the hospital board. For him to suddenly become complicit in a black market organ trade would destroy his entire character foundation. If Ted catches even a whiff of what Leslie is planning to do, he will absolutely lose his mind. He will not stand for it, not even to save his own daughter. The dramatic tension building here is absolutely delicious. Will Ted find out before Leslie manages to broadcast her morbid, lucrative offer to the criminal underworld? Ted is already stretched to his absolute psychological limit, dealing with Kat's heartbreaking refusal, Martin's concussion, and his own overwhelming grief. But he is also highly observant. He knows Leslie better than anyone. He knows that when she is backed into a corner, she does not just cower, she bites. If Leslie starts making shady, encrypted phone calls or moving massive amounts of liquid cash out of her accounts, Ted is going to notice. And when he does, the confrontation will be legendary. Ted will try to shut it down immediately, arguing passionately that they cannot save Eva's life by committing a heinous, exploitative crime. But how will Leslie react to Ted's moral grandstanding? Leslie will look him dead in the eye, filled with the terrifying resolve of a desperate mother, and ask the ultimate rhetorical question. Are you truly willing to let our daughter die just to keep your own hands clean? It is a philosophical nightmare. Leslie will argue that the system is broken, that Kat has abandoned them, and that if a willing participant wants to trade a piece of their liver for generational wealth, who is Ted to stop them? It is a horrifyingly brilliant rationalization that only a character as complex as Leslie could pull off. And let us add one more layer of brilliant analytical synergy to this narrative cake. Think about the current overarching storyline dominating Fairmont Crest, the plasma ring, the illegal harvesting and selling of biological fluids. We already know that Joey Armstrong and his ruthless sister Heather, the infamous impaler, are running a massive black market medical operation right under the police's noses. What if Leslie's desperate, highly funded search for an illegal organ donor leads her straight into the waiting arms of Heather Armstrong? What if Leslie's desperate money becomes the exact funding the impaler needs to expand her operation from plasma to actual high-stakes human organs? The narrative synergy here would be absolute perfection. Leslie, who is already funding the free clinic where plasma was stolen, could end up funding the very criminal enterprise that has been terrorizing the town, all in the name of saving Eva. It proves that in this show, every single action has a massive, town-wide, devastating reaction. This brings us to the ultimate lingering question regarding character development. What will this severe trauma do to Leslie Thomas in the long run? Will this near-death experience, this agonizing realization that her millions could not buy a legal cure, make her a better, more compassionate, grounded person? Or will this desperate plunge into the criminal underworld completely sever her last remaining ties to humanity? My theory? It is going to make her infinitely more dangerous than ever before. If she successfully buys a liver and gets away with it, she will realize that the rules truly do not apply to her. She will become an unstoppable monster, entirely fueled and justified by the twisted armor of a mother's love. So we have to ask ourselves, is Leslie justified in using her millions to buy a liver on the black market to save her dying child, or has she completely lost her moral compass? Will Ted be able to stop her in time, or will he ultimately turn a blind eye when the reality of Eva's death sets in? If Leslie goes down this dark path, there is no turning back, and the fallout will inevitably drag the entire family into the criminal abyss. Drop your theories below, because this storyline is only going to get darker, more twisted, and infinitely more compelling. Who do you think will ultimately save Eva? Keep watching, keep analyzing, and we will see you next time.